I mean, we started out in a local trailer park mowing lots for little old ladies for $6 a piece.
Okay.
And we started mowing more and more stuff, but it was as hand to mouth as you can get. And it's all a networking game. I mean, these builders, they all golf together, they vacation together. So if you do a solid job, they mention your name to their friends, and pretty soon the phones ring. And they could see we were hungry and aggressive because we would put in 14, 16, 18-hour days, whatever it took, because the last thing in the world I wanted was if I told these folks, I'll have this done in 90 days, somebody on day 91 saying, what gives? You can have three things: money, relationships, and knowledge. You spend the money, it's gone. But the knowledge and relationships, if you don't screw those up, they'll carry on forever.
Hi, I'm Andy Golding, Partner and Chief Strategy Officer of Kripke Enterprises, and I am excited about another episode of my new podcast, Toledo Works. In these podcasts, I speak with self-made business owners from Toledo, Ohio, to uncover their stories of success, perseverance, and triumph. This podcast is sponsored by Kripke Enterprises. At Kripke, recycling metal is not just good for the environment, it's good for business. This podcast is produced by Stewart Media Strategy. Get ready for an exciting conversation with Bob Klumm, founder of Klumm Brothers, a full-service demolition and excavation company. With over 25 years of experience in the industry, Bob and his brother Ron started Klumm Brothers in 1989 as a landscaping business, which quickly evolved into a successful demolition and excavation company with a team of highly experienced employees from varying areas of the construction backgrounds. Join us as we dive into Bob's story of building a successful business from humble beginnings to the area's largest demolition contractor. Welcome, Bob. I appreciate it. How are you?
Great, glad to be here.
Cool, thank you. So, you're a kid. Your dream is to be a demolition and excavation contractor.
My dream was more just being around heavy equipment. I had uncles that were mentors and role models, and they all gravitated towards big equipment. And as a kid, it was fascinating being around this stuff. So I always wanted to be involved in large equipment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Even as a young kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So your family holidays were on John Deere's and what
Pretty much.
kind of equipment? Yeah.
Caterpillar was the family brand, but
Okay.
anything and everything.
That sounds great. And are your relatives still in the business, or?
Most were uncles and they passed on, but I have first cousins that we work with on an ongoing basis daily, just in different fields of using equipment, whether it be land clearing or trucking or aggregate production.
And well, that's awesome. I mean, there was no possible way I thought you were going to say you wanted to be around big equipment. I
Yep.
thought you were going to say you want to be a baseball player or something like that.
No.
Are you from Toledo?
Yes.
Okay.
Grew up in the Reynolds Corners area, middle class, working class neighborhood, about as middle of the road as you could get.
So, did you have any jobs when you were a kid?
Yeah, they never ended. I mean, I had paper routes, caddied in Inverness. My brother and I used to make fishing lures for the Maumee River walleye run every year.
We got a guy here that does that.
Yeah.
He's been okay.
Always had some kind of a side hustle going as a kid. And then as I got into high school, worked in a grocery store, and UPS shortly thereafter. Always liked doing my own thing.
Okay. So you started. To go from. Tell me about your humble beginnings. Tell me what that was like. How you really started.
I had always mowed a couple lawns in the neighborhood all through high school, and I remember I started school at UT for about half a semester and realized school was not my cup of tea at all.
The classes or just...
It just didn't like being there.
Got it.
And
You had a taste of making money probably
Right.
from the jobs.
And so they had a program back then when the job market was much tighter than it is now, and I got a job at night at UPS sorting packages. And I was like, wow, this is a great job. But saved up a few bucks, went to Builder Square at the time and bought a push mower, a weed eater, and a blower, and we were in the landscape business.
So this is you and your brother,
Yeah.
Ron, started
Ron,
the landscape business. Okay. And how'd you get around town?
Beat up pickup truck. It was like a 1974 $500. At the time, I thought it was a great truck.
Right, of course. And so how long were you doing that? And then what was the first opportunity that led you into a different direction?
I mean, we started out in a local trailer park mowing lots for little old ladies for $6 a piece.
Okay.
And we started mowing more and more stuff, but it was as hand to mouth as you can get. I mean, we knew which customers would pay you cash when you were done, and that would put enough gas in the tank to get to the next job and hopefully buy a big gulp and a roller dog at 7-Eleven on the way.
Okay.
And so as the lawn maintenance grew, we started doing some landscape installations. And thought, well, tractor is the next fit. So we bought an old Ford tractor and started grading and doing landscape installs.
So how many years did just your first step to your tractor to or grading, how long was that?
Probably a year.
Okay.
And I've always ran my business where whatever is left over, I dump right back in.
Right. Buy more stuff.
Right.
Okay.
And so.
Does your brother do the same? Does he feel the same way?
Pretty much.
Okay.
We've always wanted to grow it to a much larger scale at whatever point we've been at. And we just, started buying. Now we need a truck that can plow snow because you can't mow grass in the winter. And as we started doing more grading work, we realized maybe a dozer was the next logical thing.
So tell me, what is, for the people that don't know what that is,
Yeah.
kind of explain that a little bit.
A tractor would be on 4 tires, and you pull a drag box, and if you were fortunate enough, it had a front loader on the front, but it's a very slow, tedious process to try and move any large scale of dirt. So once we got a dozer, we started doing more grading work. We had a couple of builders that would say, hey, can you do this backfill for me? Sure. I never told anybody no.
Right.
So then we bought a backhoe and bulldozer, began doing residential backfills.
And again, residential backfill is what, when a builder builds the house.
Yeah, when the foundation is poured, you go in and you run the water service line, the storm line, stone perimeter, backfill it, grade it off so the carpenters are the next crew on site.
Got it. No experience, no
No.
idea how to do it.
No.
But
I fortunately had uncles that were very familiar with it, and I'd say, hey, I'm going to backfill this house. And they're like, what do you know about backfilling? Well, that's why I'm here. And got great advice, sound advice. And from that, it graduated into, can you dig a basement? Sure, we'll dig a basement.
right.
So we rented an excavator on the first few and eventually bought one, which was one of the bigger steps in building our business, because it was the first time we bought something that was over $100,000, so it was pretty monumental.
And how did you, so doing a little bit of math, I'm thinking maybe you're 22, 23 around this
I
time?
was in my early 20s at that point.
How did you buy something for over $100,000 at 23 years old?
On a rental purchase option where Buck and Dobby was kind enough to say, we'll rent you this machine for X amount of dollars per month, and just ran the thing as many hours as we could and realized, all right, we can make the rent payment. They were applying the rent towards purchase price, so it just kind of all fell together. And lending was a different animal than it is today. I mean, you didn't have a track record, so
Yeah, you were 22 and you
Right.
mowed lawns in a trailer park.
and so rental purchase option, RPOs, as they're called in the construction equipment game, was a stepping stone we used. We would rent equipment, go do jobs, and each rent payment you were building equity in it. And they would apply that when you hit a point where it's like, okay, we put $20,000 equity into this machine. the lenders had a different perception of you. Instead of you buying a $60,000 bulldozer, you were buying a $60,000 bulldozer that you theoretically had paid a third of it now.
Right.
And so
it was easier to get a loan.
It was
because,
easier.
Right.
And
okay.
You made damn sure that you paid that payment early, because the next time you went to John Deere Credit or Caterpillar Credit, you wanted them to welcome lending you more money.
Okay.
And knew you weren't going to be able to do it if you were behind on the payments.
So are you making any money at this point? Where so at 22, you're not even making money. You're still in the noodle stage.
Yes. It was every dollar we made, we put right back in.
Okay.
In what we do, it's beyond buying the $100,000 excavator, the $60,000 dozer. It's now you need a fuel pump, you need a trailer, you need a dump truck to pull it.
And you got to have a place to put all this
Yes.
stuff.
And I had uncles that were kind enough early on to let me store my equipment at their
That's
facilities.
critical.
So it was, and that worked out real well. So I built a home in Swanton that had a pole barn behind it, and I quickly learned how you need to conform to zoning, because
Right.
The level of growth, all of a sudden, a little backyard business was bursting at the seams.
So this is in the early 90s.
This would have been in the mid 90s, yeah.
Okay. And what neighborhoods are you really working at? I mean, where was the big construction that you were doing this?
Back in that era, it was Stone Oak, it was going crazy, Tremor, and all the subdivisions in that Holland area.
Okay.
And Sylvania was really coming on strong at that point in time.
Right.
And
So you're building, things are happening, one builder sees you, he pulls
Yep.
you over to the next, and then the next, and then the project, like the guy that built Stone Oak probably says, hey, if you can do this, well, maybe can you do a clearing for a building?
yeah. And it's all a networking game. I mean, these builders, they all golf together, they vacation together. So if you do a solid job, they mention your name to their friends, and pretty soon the phone's ringing. And we were just pounding and pounding on basements. It was the next kind of wave that we did. We had a crew digging basements, a crew following, backfilling the basements. And at that point in time, we were running 3 or 4 lawn maintenance crews. We were taking care of the villages of Stone Oak, which is the
Sure.
condominiumized portion. We were mowing, at that time it was Cavalier, it was property management. All the properties they managed, we were taking care of John's Manville.
So you're 25 years old.
Yep.
You really don't know shit at 25 years old.
No.
And yet you're managing what sounds like, I don't know, a couple dozen people?
Yeah.
And you had an office, or where was the office?
In my basement at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And then 97, 98, we built our shop on Bancroft just because we had completely blown at the seams on trying to run it in a backyard.
Right.
And that was like a major stepping stone, because now you had an office. Somebody would come see you in your office, somebody was there to answer the phones.
Right.
But it was a plateau in many good ways, but you quickly learned the costs of having a commercial piece of property, even though we built everything ourselves.
Now you have overhead.
Yep, we did cheap and dirty, but it was a learning curve.
And you're still on that piece of property?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was a fluke. I had zoning crawling all over me, and I drove by and it was a for sale sign, and I called it, and I said, do you mind if I walk the property? The first thing I find are drums that have EPA orders on them.
No, that's
I'm like, well, how do you even begin to offer something? So I called, and the realtor said, it's an elderly woman, she just wants out from under this.
music
So-
to your ears.
I said, all right, I'll make an offer. I'll offer you the full asking price. I don't have much to put down, but you've got to finance it. Deal. And they said, but you have to oversee the cleanup of these drums. I don't know the first thing about running an environmental cleanup, so I started looking at the labels, well, they're shipping labels. And so, we'll make a couple calls. So I contacted the EPA phone number, and I met them out there. I'd say, yeah, it's a shipping label. And there were some Fortune 500 companies on the shipping label. And so a couple phone calls and it was cleaned up in a blink of an eye.
That's unbelievable.
So it was a great deal. I put next to nothing down. The owner financed it because I doubt a bank would have lent an undeveloped piece of property to an inexperienced kid.
Right. So you're 28, 29.
Yep.
You got a piece of property. It sounds like you got a couple $100,000 worth of equipment that you are renting to. Is all of this still rent on? Do you own some
No,
of it?
we were buying. I've always been an auction junkie.
Okay.
And,
I know you were just at one for like a week.
Yeah.
Buying stuff.
and so we started off with some crude, worn out equipment.
Okay.
And it will make you a better operator when you go from learning on something second rate to something state of the art.
So that lesson right there is so critical.
Yep.
because society is like, we'll buy it new, the warranties, the this, the that. When it's old and it breaks, you got no one to call to fix it. You guys grind it out. You figure it out.
Our first bulldozer, I spent $6,000.
Okay.
At that time, a dozer with an operator was $60 an hour. So I'm like, all right, $100 on this thing, and we own it.
Right.
And same thing with the backhoe. It's a $10,000 backhoe. And then once you gain the skill, and I'd never been on a dozer in my life. Sat on one. But,
Took pictures with your uncles.
Right.
Okay.
And,
That was probably your holiday card, a picture of you guys.
And so we started out with the worst of the worst in equipment and just figured out, all right, can we make money with it when it's next to zero expense?
Right.
And graduate into, we went from a $6,000 dozer to a $60,000 dozer. But you had to have that stepping stone in there just to appreciate A, what you had just bought, and B, how you had built up to get it.
So now you're 28, 29 years old. When is the first time you realize or you find yourself just way over your head and you need some help from an uncle? You have, let me ask you differently. What was the most serious thing that happened to you when you were 28, 29?
It was a little later than that. In 06, 07, we were going gangbusters.
Okay.
I mean, we'd have unfortunately, I graduated from high school in 1987. Windows operating system was not
That was
taught
the
in
same
school.
year I graduated.
Okay.
Right.
And so we used Como, I think it was called. It was a computer language. If you could write a dirty word on the screen, you thought you were doing good.
Okay.
And so I grew up without the computer knowledge. I would write somebody a paper invoice, drop it in
Sure.
the mail, and it took me a long time to, and I'm still way behind the curve from that technology standpoint. But it, where I was going with that is back then, you just had a calendar, and this builder would call, and our next available dig is on this date, and you'd be booked out a month. I mean, the early 2000s construction in this area was just insane. And then in 08, we went from digging around 200 basements a year to 8.
That's no good.
No. At the same point in time, I had bought a concrete crusher, and it was just on a whim. I was
Auction?
at an auction in Florida, and
Right.
somebody had one
Is it the
exhibited
same
out
auction you
front.
were just at a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm laying there in bed at night. As soon as I get home, I got to pay this stone bill. The damn stone bill is one of my most expensive bills every month. You know what? I'm gonna go back and talk to that guy with that crusher, because why don't I become my own customer?
So, I understand what you're talking about because I've been there.
Yeah.
Why don't you, so I'll try to, you do a construction project, you take out concrete. In
Right.
order to make concrete, you need to use old concrete. Is that accurate?
No.
Okay, so tell me how it works and
Back
tell me why
then-
you need one of those things.
What we were doing is, when you dig a basement, you bed the sanitary sewer and storm sewer pipe in stone.
Okay.
And when you do the backfill, the perimeter you fill with stone. If you're in playground like in Savannah, you fill the garage with stone, the driveway. And that was always one of my biggest monthly bills was my stone bill.
Okay.
And it just the light bulb went off in the middle of the night, and I'm like, if I could make my own stone,
What do you make it out of?
concrete that people
Okay.
are paying to get rid of.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting there thinking this out. I couldn't get to the auction quick enough to not go in the auction, but to see this guy who had this exhibit set up. And I'm looking at this thing, and the wheels just start turning. And so we got back, and I started telling a couple other contractors. I said, I'm thinking about buying one of these stone crushers. And at the time, reuse, recycle was not everyday language.
Right.
And so the stone quarries would lobby ODOT,
They
cities.
didn't want,
They did
the
not
your
want
stone
right
to be used in
their
all
eyes,
this stuff.
You know, this is garbage.
Right. Oh man.
And so it was a very different mindset at the time.
So this stone crusher, how much is something like this?
That particular one was $420,000.
That's a pretty big purchase.
Huge, yeah.
Right.
And so we had to use it on our jobs. You know, if we were doing a backfill, if we were putting a sewer in. But where we found the niche was, okay, we're tearing out concrete here. Instead of paying a disposal fee over here, we're going to run it through this machine and sell the byproduct. All the pieces fit together real well with it. And the timing of that was super instrumental into the launch of our company into the demo game, because we had done houses for several years all over, but at the time the Ohio Schools Facility Commission decided they were going to issue grants to replace outdated schools. And the first
Demo schools. Right.
And so as the basement digging backfilling game just hit the skids,
Sure.
we landed the first school demo, which was the old Burnham building in Savannah.
Oh yeah.
The original Savannah High School.
Okay. So this is after you bought the
After
stone
I bought
crusher?
the crusher.
Okay.
When we bought the crusher, I had talked to a friend of mine, and he said, I've got a project coming up at Toledo Express Airport. I'm going to be replacing a bunch of runway. I'll take a price to crush it. So I'm calling my salesman for the Eagle Crusher. Dude, I don't even know how to put this together.
Toll crushing.
Here's the parameters. And we muddled our way through it. And so we did the first job, and it was a substantial job. That's when the housing just hit the skids. So we landed the job of tearing down the Burnham building, and the whole building was concrete and brick.
So you're a guy that was mowing lawns 10 years earlier,
Right.
and somebody gave you the opportunity to take down a building. That's a heck of an opportunity.
And I had some raised eyebrows when I went into the meetings, and I'd like the opportunity to tear this down, and we'll look at it tore down. Fortunately, some of the guys with the construction company that was the project manager were familiar with me. I'd done smaller stuff for them.
Okay.
He can get it done. And like, I'll work around the clock, whatever it takes. I will get this done. I'll meet the time frame. It'll be shattered the time frame.
Right.
Put the whole project well ahead of schedule, because then there was a rebuild.
Right. So you got it down quickly so they could start building.
Right.
The building.
And
Huge added value.
enormous. And then what happened is, that was when the Bosselman Company was a major player, and when that dissolved, a lot of their project managers all moved into other general contracting
So
firms.
tons of talent in the marketplace.
Yeah, it displaced them, but at the same point in time, they were familiar with us because we had met on this job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get called, this is so-and-so, I worked with you on this project, would you be interested in giving us a price on this? Absolutely. And
Okay. So you had ambassadors at all these other
Yes.
companies that you've worked with, and you delivered on all your promises. So they definitely wanted to work.
And they could see we were hungry and aggressive, because we would put in 14, 16, 18-hour days, whatever it took, because the last thing in the world I wanted was, if I told these folks, I'll have this done in 90 days, somebody on day 91 saying, what gives? And so, as construction was at a grinding halt, we just did school after school after school all through Northwest Ohio. And That's where I got familiar with the scrap industry because a lot of them had a fair amount of metal.
So you get the deal for Burnham, and do you go home and lay in bed and say, "Holy shit! I just got this deal to knock down this Burnham building. You know, how am I going to do this?" I mean, is that going through your mind, or?
It was a little concerning, and what made that more concerning is the first day we showed up, I did not realize how dear that building was to the Savannah community.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's the sidewalks are lined with lawn chairs, and these people are ready to watch a building come down.
Right.
And
yeah,
we did a phenomenal job. It went great. Finished way ahead of schedule. And so that was our launch into the bigger buildings.
Okay. So when you demo a building, I think of two things. I think of a wrecking ball, and I think of explosives. Do you have either one of those?
Wrecking balls, yes. Explosives, no.
Okay.
It's Northwest Ohio is not known for imploding buildings.
Okay.
And even that whole process of demolition has evolved in the time I've been doing it. Now everything is hydraulic processors, and one of the things that helped build our position in the demo industry was now all these younger engineers that were coming out of school that were spearheading these projects had the mindset of recycle, recycle, recycle. Where 20 years earlier, you'd have hauled every bit of that building away,
right,
and you'd have paid a dump fee, and then you'd have went to the stone quarry and bought all brand new stone and built it up to grade. And how this fell together so well is we crushed every bit of concrete, block, brick, and compacted and built a new building pad on there. So we were able to then have bragging rights to say, we can do a building like this and recycle 95% of the volume by weight. And as more and more,
and everybody had to love that. I mean,
did.
that is, and
except the old guy who was not selling the stone,
right?
And,
sure.
And the guy at the landfill who wasn't getting the benefit of all the dump fees.
And when I think of demolition, I think of the stuff that comes out of the building, you take to a recycling center. I never have thought about the other stuff. I assumed that it just went to the dump, but that competitive advantage, I mean, what a great story. I mean, that is an amazing story to tell a company, because someone in the company definitely is green and they want to say, hey, how can we do this greener? You're like, well, shit, we'll just grind it up and use it as the ground.
And now it's the accepted practice.
Of course.
But it took a lot of arm twisting. But each year, as kids who grew up getting greener,
right? Sure.
the more popular it became. We've done jobs at BGSU. They've come out and done studies on what percentage of this was being recycled, and they're even amazed by what level we hit. If it's ferrous or non-ferrous, obviously it's just scrapyard. If it's a clean wood, unpainted, which there's not a lot of in these larger buildings,
somebody will buy it.
They won't necessarily buy it, but you put it in a waste stream where there's recycle credits somebody's getting for it. And then block, brick, concrete, asphalt, all of those we recycle them and market nonstop daily.
What's impressed about by your building is that you've got a truck that comes in and drops off concrete. It goes around in a circle, and it basically picks up the stone that was from some project and makes its way out.
Right.
Are there tons of places that do that in Toledo?
There's
competition for that?
There's a handful. It's we've taken it to the next level where we're not just running the stone or the concrete rather through a crusher and making a mass pile. We're screening it and grading it to where we're making different sizes of stone, different gradation of berm. So if we have a job coming up that we say we're going to need an enormous amount of sixes, we kind of reconfigure the crushing yard and make what we know we'll need.
So your story sounds too freaking easy. I mean, it just
There
sounds.
was nothing easy about
The
it.
way you explain it, we grew, and then we grew some more, and we grew some more, and and it sounds like your humility. You weren't probably buying boats when you should be buying bulldozers.
Never owned a boat.
So, me neither. So, but you had to have some serious challenges along the way. And I'm interested, have you had challenges with your brother? Have you had challenges with your bank? Have you had, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you have had along the way that people would say, I'm going through something like that right now?
My brother and I are 2 years apart, so there were countless times where we would be on a job site and be rolling in a dirt fist fight.
Love brothers.
It's just inevitable.
Right.
I've always taken the lead, been the front person, and he was the guy doing the work.
Okay.
He's far better equipment operator than.
So you're the guy that never says no, and
Right.
he's the guy that
He
says,
goes,
shit.
Why did you say
yes? Right. Sales and operations.
Right.
Classic fighting and rolling in the dirt.
So there have been unlimited conflicts that way. We've, over the years, 08 and 09, banks got a little funny. We had one that said, hey, we're thinking about calling this note, and 2 months ahead on the payment, what are you going to call? Or that they are calling to congratulate me for being ahead of the game. And
I don't know if banks do that.
no.
Yeah.
And I've had points in my career where I look at an accounts receivable report and I look at accounts payable report, and the payables higher than the receivables. And it's like, you've got a problem here. And it's like, we need to really ramp the hell out of what we're doing and get some billing in here to, my biggest fear was always, what if I can't make payroll? I remember scrambling around in the residential building days where that's where a lot of what we did. Some of the builders would string you along, they would get $5,000. Hey, I really need my money. Well, I can get it to you today, but I want a discount. And you get exploited a few times, and you wise up to the game. So
right.
If I'm gonna finance this project, I want to be compensated like the bank.
For sure.
If this, there was a lot of learning curve along the way with different types of businesses and how they do business, and it boils down today to knowledge and relationships. I mean, along the way, I've made great friends in every industry that I could, and they'll call on me. Sometimes we're the company that, hey, who can we find to do this? It'll be so obscure that they'll come, yeah, we'll figure out how to do it. But the value of building relationships every single day will pay dividends forever. If you shit your name up in one way or another, that will haunt you into eternity. So
this is my third podcast,
okay.
and so far the theme has been two things: relationships and networking. It's how the three people that I've met with so far have built their businesses. You are the oldest one, and it is amazing that those are the constant themes.
No, you can have three things: money, relationships, and knowledge. You spend the money, it's gone. But the knowledge and relationships, if you don't screw those up, they'll carry on forever.
So now that you've been going to this auction for
Forever.
what was your best purchase, or the purchase that you were the most proud of that maybe didn't work out?
You will appreciate this one. I sat all day long because in the weeds I found an alligator shear, an electric one.
Sure.
I really want this thing.
So alligator shears are to
Cut pipe, wire, whatever.
Right.
And I sat there all day. When are they going to get to this lot number? And it was an oddball day at the auctions. I've been going to the big equipment auctions in Kissimmee for 30 years. And it's a series of 4 different auctions. And one day they'll sell excavators, one day dozers. And Then they'll have junk days. So I sat there, and they finally got this thing. I bought it for like $180, but
So proud.
oh yeah, I thought more about that purchase than when we were down there this year. We bought 2 big dozers and a big excavator. But
Right.
for some reason, that thing, I gravitated to it and wasn't leaving till I owned it.
It's so funny. It's the small things. So, in your demolition business, what is the biggest project that you have done?
Riverside Hospital was big. The Bowling Green Administration Building on the BGSU campus, that was big. There'd be 2 parking garages at University of Toledo. Currently doing Elder Maryland, which isn't to the scale of those, but probably the BGSU Administration Building is a 11-story building.
And there's no dynamite in an 11-story building.
Especially when you're next to the honors dorm, right in
Right.
the middle of campus, and you can't wake honor students up before 10 a.m.
No, of course not. Okay.
So,
And what role? So in demolition, like recycling, safety has to play an enormous part of this. Like, how does safety fit into your business, and how do you continuously educate on the newest safeties? Who regulates demolition? And tell me a little bit about that. And has anybody been killed in any of your stuff?
no, fortunately.
Thank God. That's great.
Yeah. Outside of some minor little injuries, none. The bigger the job, the more of a focus we will generate a site-specific safety net. We say, okay, guys, here are the real hazards of this particular building. And you've
What
gotta-
would something like that be?
if you have a 50-foot wall, you want to have your area to stay out of 150% of that.
Yes.
So it's when you don't have 75 feet on a 50-foot wall that,
Right.
How do
There's
we
a
do
building
this?
next to it.
right.
Okay.
For example, we just did the Rosemary Arm Apartments at Detroit and Phillips. And it was built right on the edge of the road. So we got creative and put a bunch of 70-yard roll-off boxes in our lane closure, which gave us 8 foot of protective wall if something were to fall, and 8 foot over there was another one. So
Right.
we really like to plan that out to not, if you go in with a good plan, it's much easier than
Okay.
just winging it. But I'm real particular on, if I see a Matavo, it better have a guard.
Right.
When I started finding power tools that have guards,
Right. So you're on.
Gets
You're
everybody's
watching.
attention.
And who is what agency?
could be an OSHA type
Okay.
agency that would regulate that. And then a lot of times, very large demos will be for a large project management firm, and they want to know your safety agenda going into it.
Right.
They'll ask you very targeted questions, and so you kind of prepare on, okay, this is why we're doing it this way, this is why we won't do it this way, and they will oftentimes have a on-staff safety director, safety person, whatever. And we typically have a conversation with them, and this is the way we want to do it.
Right. And you have an audience now. I
Right.
mean, the news is always at
Oh,
every one of your
yeah.
jobs. The news is there.
And a lot of times now people are setting up GoPros.
Right.
So-
oh, sure.
The last thing in the world I want is one of my guys walking through an area he shouldn't be without his hard hat, because now there's video of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So as technology has evolved, everything you do is being recorded.
Right. I want to make a TikTok
Right.
of Elder Bierman coming down.
Yeah.
Somebody's filming it. Oh, I totally get it.
You're a little
So-
late to the party.
Oh, right.
It's-
So, all right, so you start out mowing lawns, then you grow the business. Now you've grown the business, you go into demolition, you go into excavation, then you go into demolition. And as you're going into demolition, you go into the recycling of stone business. And now you also have a large garbage business where you pick up residential garbage, and a roll-off business, or a mobile dumpster business.
Yeah.
Where are you going from here? What is the next purchase at the auction that's going to take you into a different direction? What direction do you dream of?
We want to scale up the garbage because that is a razor thin margin.
So you need a lot of volume.
A lot of volume. So we're going to scale that up. The trucking end of the business has always been instrumental when we would do residential work even to balance a site. You're either hauling material in or hauling material out. So the dump trucking end of things grew with the business. As we started doing demo, the roll-offs did. And both of those attributes were primarily engaged in just to support our own tasks. And as time grew, hey, I need a roll-off.
That is the story of your business.
Right.
Hey, I need.
But I always try to connect. I'm not going to go get in the pizza business.
Right.
It's got to complement the other things we do.
You do it so perfectly, and it's so smart because my guess is you're not doing it with at this point, you're probably not doing it with bank loans. You're probably doing a lot of these things with cash that you're making, and I would believe from what we've talked about, you're still reinvesting in your business.
Every day. I mean, I'm not a flashy person. I drive a pickup.
No, I see your pickup. It's not so unflashy.
It's not unflashy.
It's pretty flashy.
I've never gotten into the rat race of
keeping up
the cars and the toys. I get a bigger thrill out of buying another piece of equipment.
Right.
It's
so you want to scale up the garbage.
Scale up the garbage.
Residential. Okay.
And there's a couple like back of the brain thoughts on additional processing that we can do to make different assets more productive. But everything we do, we try to piggyback on something we already do. The garbage thing was kind of a whim. It was.
Who wants to be in the garbage business? It's freaking garbage.
Yeah.
Like, that is a tough business to
be in. It is a tough
and
business. And how we wound up in it was at the onset of COVID, everybody was home cleaning out their garages. And the phone starts ringing like crazy. People are like, I need a mini dumpster. Help me understand what you need. I said, we have 10-yard, 20-yard, 30-yard, 40-yard roll-off boxes. I need a mini dumpster. Well, how big is a mini dumpster?
Garbage can.
4 yard. They don't make a 4-yard roll-off for a roll-off truck. So we're sitting in the office kicking ideas around and said, what if we were to buy a front-load garbage truck? And when this person cleaning out their spare bedroom wants to clean it out, we can drop off a 4-yard dumpster, and when they're done, pick it up. Okay, so
we go to the auction.
Yeah, bought it on eBay.
Oh,
front load,
unbelievable!
Front load garbage truck, and we post a picture of this on social media, and people start posting. You going in the residential trash? No. About the 8th time, and a couple bourbons. I said yes. And Brian in my office called me and goes, well, you just said yes that you're going to do residential garbage. I said, I think we can figure it out.
Never say no.
It exploded. And what we've learned in that business is the weakness. It's typically controlled by very big Fortune 500 type companies.
Sure. It's easy to call those companies and get someone on the phone.
Yes, exactly.
It's such a pleasure.
A thimbleful of customer service
right.
is all it takes to gain market share.
That's amazing.
Nobody wants dumped into a call center. They want to talk to a human.
Right. Where's my bill? I remember I have gone through those experiences.
And they'll gladly pay 20% more.
And they want to support local
service.
Businesses.
Yes. It's been very easy to grow that just by making sure that you keep customers happy. The super large providers, they don't care. We didn't get your garbage, we'll leave it out next week. We'll make it a point that, okay, whether you didn't have it out or my guy missed it, we'll invite them out again. And the customer base is very receptive to that.
Your business, from everything we've talked about, I have been waiting and prodding for the secret. And I wish that I could have broken a secret today, but your secrets are so boring.
Right.
Treat people right. Network. One of yours is never say no, and we'll figure it out.
Right.
And And that is the essence of an entrepreneur.
And having a solid team around you is as important as any of those things. You've got to have the right guys pushing in this direction, the right guys pulling in that direction. The me, my, I won't get it done. So I kind of view it like a large boat. There's guys pulling sails, there's guys rowing, and fortunately I get to steer. But it takes a solid team, and you need to figure out where in that team you need to build to obtain growth. Without a solid team around you, you'll go backwards.
So as a customer of yours, as we do business together, one of your team members, Brian, I have always said, I have never met anyone that if I were to ask him to do anything, he would figure out a way to get it done. And that is what you built your business on.
Right.
And that is the secret. That really is the secret to your entrepreneurship. And somehow you have been able to trickle it down to your staff, or surrounded yourself with people that feel that same
like-minded people.
way.
I want people that are energetic. And why won't this work? It's how do we get this to
For
work?
sure. Which is the $6,000 dozer that you got to get on the job tomorrow. It's got to start. So let's find the manual and get this thing running.
And in my mind, I can't do trigonometry, but I look at something and I say, okay, that truck, equipment, whatever the piece is, should bill out at X amount an hour. It costs boom. How do you sell 1,000 hours of this service to offset owning it? I don't want to make any money with it yet. I want to own it, and then we'll make money with it. And that's kind of the way I break everything down, and over time, the elephant you're trying to eat has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. But with anything, the higher the barrier of entry to a specific task, typically the more lucrative that business can be.
It's very difficult to compete against someone who's been in business for 25, 30 years, whose equipment has been paid for, to try and go buy all new equipment and compete price-wise against you.
In our equipment, we have made enormous strides to upgrade our entire fleet, and a lot of that has to do with the current labor market. People aren't lined up at your door. So if I'm looking for a dump truck driver and another guy's looking for a dump truck driver, and the pay scale is similar,
You're gonna look at the truck.
the guy's going to say, I'm driving in this truck with automatic transmission, all the bells and whistles, it's nice looking, or I can drive this piece of junk. And so
that is really interesting. Never thought about that.
that is how we've been able to attract and retain some great people, is they don't want to run junk.
Right.
And so it took me a long time to learn that, but
Yeah.
the learning curve ticked up quickly as the labor market has shrunk.
Do you think, to kind of close things up, do you think that electric equipment is going to play a role in the type of work that you do?
I absolutely do. I've watched the videos on the Tesla semi.
Sure.
And I can't wait until they're in production. I was at the construction equipment show last week in Vegas Con Expo, and they had a lot of electric equipment. It was overwhelmingly prototype stuff. But that's the direction everything's heading. So you can either fight it and dig in, or you can say, how do I get ahead of that curve on the leading edge? There's autonomous equipment coming down the pipeline. If you go to a trade show and there's something new, you probably ought to pay attention to it, because over time,
Somebody will.
Somebody's going to. And I'm sure when they introduce electric trucks, there's going to be some heartburn with it. But the statistics that they produce on the operational costs are accurate, it's kind of a no-brainer.
That's great. Hey, I really appreciate this is fascinating. I mean, your industry and what you do and really how you do it, as simple as it is,
Right.
it's been great. And I really appreciate you being here, man. Thanks.